Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about mission creep. There has been news going around about a DoD, Department of Defense, document that has been updated recently. This document is called the DoD Directive 5240.01. This document is revised on a regular basis. It was revised on August 8th, 2016. When the document was revised to include intelligence oversight for local law enforcement. That was 3 months before the 2016 election. Now, what you'll find to be interesting about this is that if you look at all of the updates for this document, they're always right during an election cycle right before the election. It's as if they anticipate some type of public outburst where they can go and they can just take control over the public, but they want to cover their asses about it.
Yeah, they don't want somebody to bring that up during a press conference or something and somebody ask a legitimate question.
But see, this is standard for the government and the military because it's always hurry up and wait and fix everything at the last minute. You could look at all of the crises that happened in American history, and they always go to fix shit after the crises until they're forced to do it. So this is where you see other laws such as the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, used in conjunction with 5240.01 to target American citizens. So the point of bills like this, as I said, is to cover their asses, but they want to reach and grab for as much power as possible that allows them the most control. Now, they won't admit to this, but it's their actions that tell you exactly what it is they're doing, because with each small erosion of privacy and rights in the United States, you see more and more reach and control from the Department of Defense, the State Department, the U.S. military, intelligence agencies, and they're always chipping away at the Constitution. But what you find is that these deep state swamp creatures that love to keep these cushy jobs for decades, these jobs that they get that they're not elected to, they're selected into. So the 2024 revision is the one that everybody's talking about because this happened September 27th, 2024. And that update caused a lot of people to be concerned because when you read the document, and you can download the PDF, but there's a redacted version and there's the unredacted version. And so when you look at these updated versions, there's things that give people lots of concern. And one thing that actually caused people like RFK and Ron Paul to take notice was the use of lethal force on American citizens. The military is quick to say, oh, this isn't what you think it is. All this depends on the law. Well, to that military person, I would say you need to look at the law because they're always updating the law so that it can benefit people and they can take away more and more rights. So yeah, you can lean on that law all you want. By the time you lean on it, it's Swiss cheese and it's rotten and it's going to collapse because it's rigid and crusty.
Mm-hmm. Look, I think one of the things that pops out when you first start reading this report law, it says if it's common knowledge or it's public domain or public knowledge, they don't have to get a search warrant for it.
Okay, so hold on. Let me stop you right there. So the main reason for this update is to increase the capacity for intelligence gathering by intelligence agencies, because what this directive does, it allows intelligence agencies greater reach into the personal lives of American citizens. And so what they want to do is anybody who is speaking out against the status quo, the people in charge, they will call them domestic terrorists. So for the longest time, they've been wanting to develop this Department of Domestic Terrorism and go and attack American citizens. Now, but you see this happening at these school board meetings. And when the parents are pushing back against these lewd books that are being placed into the library that describe sexual acts to preteens, these parents, when they speak up at these school board meetings, these parents are labeled activists or terrorists, and all they are concerned parents.
Now, hold on. When I read it read like that they were trying to honor the Fourth Amendment and put some things in place that should have been put in place. But the issue is, how do you oversee these people? That's the whole. There's been no oversight. That's why this shit is where it is now. And the way the law reads, I thought it was trying to improve the situation. But again, who's watching the watchers? When you were a kid, you heard that shit back in the 60s and 70s. Who's watching the watchers? That's the thing. Who can actually put oversight over this to make sure that the NSA is in line? Because they've been running roughshod.
The public has to. The public has to.
Agreed. But most of us don't know where to look, where to find. And the article you gave me last night, the most interesting thing I thought about it was they said these laws originated in 1982, and they really haven't been updated since 82. And that let me know that they saw this computer thing coming. They knew. It said that Time magazine said the computer was the machine of the year
in 1982, and that was the same year that word processors replaced typewriters in newsrooms.
Yeah. And so the reason that's so relevant is because that means that they have not updated this law since. And they've done little tweaks here and there, like you said, but really they have not had the proper oversight. And with that being the case, they were running roughshod over our information, getting our information, not just dates and times, but real conversations and having access to all this different stuff. So that's where we are now, to where, look, the Fourth Amendment does not give you the right without a warrant. But again, what did they say? They only issued 42 of those special FIF warrants, but they had over 100 FISA warrants, excuse me. They only issued like 42 of those, but they had 152 million or crazy all these different phone calls and emails. So clearly they weren't just honoring those warrants.
Now, the 2024 revision of the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA Act, included a provision added by Senate Chairman Mike Turner that prevents military personnel from speaking to civil rights groups and remove information from the internet that is deemed malinformation. It also pushes for the elimination of Bibles in U.S. military soldier barracks. One such civil rights group is the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which pushes back on these types of military laws. Yeah, so this is in the 2024 revision of the NDAA. Yeah, man, that's fucking insane. So then it's weird because that's how you hear about strange things going on at these Air Force Academy, where you have the instructor is teaching a class on Satanism. And I'm like, but the crazy thing is the class curriculum was not billed as that. It wasn't in the syllabus as a class on Satanism. The instructor took it upon himself to then start with the first 15 minutes of the class curriculum and then break from that. And the last 45 minutes is about Satanism.
When we were kids, 2020 had a dossier about Satanism. One of the things that popped up in there, Satanism is a recognized religion of the Marine Corps. Not the only religion, I'm not saying that, but it is actually officially recognized.
No, it is one recognized. It's not the official.
No, that's what I said. I didn't say it was the official. I said it is officially recognized by the Marine Corps. I didn't say it was their religion. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it really is considered an actual religion. And I remember hearing that. I'm like, what the hell? So the ideas that this goes back to mission creep, as you put it. They've been creeping this in and making it mainstream gradually to where, like, oh, freedom of religion? Yeah. So yes, we have freedom of religion, but you got to understand what that means and how it's applied.
Rex 84. Rex 84B, short for Readiness Exercise 1984 Bravo, was a classified program and drill developed by the U.S. government to detain large numbers of U.S. residents deemed to be national security threats. The scenario envisioned state defense forces rounding up 500,000 undocumented Central American residents and 4,000 American citizens whom the U.S. Attorney General had designated as national security threats as part of the COG, continuity of government. Now, when is the last time we heard about COG in the news? During the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
These people who would be detained at 22 military bases in concentration camps run by FEMA. In 1984, the scenario involved a U.S. Army rehearsal of airlifting the entire 82nd Army Airborne, which is 15,000 troops, from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, under the cover of night and flying them to either El Salvador or Nicaragua as a simulated invasion to enforce a state of martial law. This was part of the exercise that had been codenamed Rex 84 Night Train, an overall readiness exercise involving 34 federal agencies, which codenamed Rex 84, with the FEMA's role in assisting the DoD as Rex 84 Alpha. Later, when the mass detention scenario involving FEMA was added at the request of FEMA Director Luis Giuffreda and Reagan advisor Ed Meese, and personally authorized by President Ronald Reagan. The mass detention scenario was codenamed Rex 84 Bravo. It was modeled on a 1970s Giuffreda Meese Reagan exercise in California known as Operation Cable Splicer. The plan was first discovered by a Christian newspaper in 1984 and later revealed in detail in a major daily newspaper by reporter Alfonso Shardy in the July 5, 1987 edition of the Miami Herald. Now, the first time we hear about Rex 84 in the modern times was in a book called Behold a Pale Horse.
Don't forget what we learned as children was the King Alfred Plan. So in 77, there's a song by Gil Scott-Heron called the King Alfred Plan. And the King Alfred Plan was basically, they wanted to put a bunch of niggas into concentration camps. They thought we were getting out of line with this whole revolution shit. And so they were going to put us in concentration camps. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The way the country was divided up for these concentration camps mirrors FEMA, the modern day FEMA breakdown of the whole country. The only difference, I think, was Louisiana or New Orleans, somewhere around there, it was slightly different. And the way that this came out was I remember when I think 95, 96, some goofball left his laptop at an airport. People picked it up, got into it, and it ran down this Rex 84 from back in the day, which coincided with the King Alfred Plan, where they were trying to prepare for black folks in our uprising. The other part was they were using local law enforcement to implement this shit. So they had a bunch of like reserve police officers with nothing but racists. They had oh yeah, I'm a deputy of this. So they had planned this well in advance that if black folks got out of line, they would do this. So this Rex 84 was a practice for an invasion of somebody acting a fool, enough people, concentration camps. We know how to deal with them, take them down to, and like he said, they practiced this down in El Salvador. So Rex 84, before that King Alfred Plan, and look it up. But like I said, if anybody has a problem, check out how the country was divided up, and you'll see that it's pretty much the same as these current FEMA allocations and how this country is divided up now.
Okay, so the King Alfred Plan, the King Alfred Plan, when you look it up, is a fictional CIA-led scheme supporting an international effort to eliminate people of African ancestry, invented by author John A. Williams in his 1967 The Man Who Cried I Am. So it's funny when you look this up, it's seen as something fictional, but when you look at the details of what the King Alfred Plan, you see mirrors of that 15, 20 years later in Rex 84.
There's a song by Gil Scott-Heron where he explains that black folks, they got a place for you. And he's talking about these concentration camps. And again, when we were in high school, we learned about the Japanese being placed in concentration
internment
camps.
Internment
camps, excuse me, during during the Second World War, pardon me. And even though we were at war with Japan, they loaded up anybody who was Asian or looked Asian at the time, sent them to the middle of Nebraska. So there is a historical precedence for these things. What we're trying to get across to you is that's the problem when you have the government listening to your conversations. That's a problem when you have the government complaining because you speak out against a war or something, and then all of a sudden they'll label you as a terrorist or label you as a extremist, as you said.
Okay, and then but here is what you got to understand. They will even create entire fabricated operations that are staffed mostly by federal agents. For example, the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Which one is this?
12 of the 14 guys in Michigan that were part of this plot, 12 of the 14 people were federal agents. So hold on, you only had two dudes? Two dudes, right? Two dudes.
They did the same thing in Texas with some Arab guys. They had 2 or 3 Arab guys. So they approach these guys in a chat room. They get these guys hyped up, and then these guys actually buy bombs and try to do some shit. They're like, oh, we can't stop them. And they lost track of the dudes. 2 dudes. Like you said, 2 dudes.
So there were a group of people in New Mexico that had a ranch compound where they would take these kids that they would get off the street, these runaways, and some of these kids were abducted from their parents, and they would basically train them in combat tactics to be school shooters. Yep. There was one kid who made it there to the compound and died 2 weeks later at the location.
Hey, how is that any different from old boy, the DC sniper, Leroy Malvoy, whatever? Remember, he grabbed that kid up.
He was grooming that boy to do the same thing, you know.
Yep.
Now, and they say, you know, he was doing some gay touch butt shit with the kid too. So, but here's the thing. So they're saying at the New Mexico ranch, the guys that were training the kids were Muslim extremists, which would make sense because you would need somebody who didn't give a shit and already had an agenda towards hating America.
Look, you touch on so many different things. When you have an extremist like that, somebody who doesn't like America, doesn't like the way America's set up, and they want to implement some Sharia law things over here, then yeah, any of those disasters would only further their agenda. He touched on so many different things, but like I said, this is the problem with the deep state being in your business. They can warp. Once they arrest you, Roscoe, they can put anything out there and say that, yeah, because that's it. I remember. Hold it. I remember when I was a kid, whenever one of these guys would shoot someplace up, what did they always find? We found his diary. Nigga, how many niggas you know got a diary? So it would drive you crazy. They would find his diary. Yes, he talked about doing this and this. Well, now they don't find your diary. They find your Facebook or your old MySpace page or your Instagram. And that's what they're doing now. Like, hey, did you see his Instagram? He talked about kicking the president in the butt and buying toilet paper. And then they warp this as just saying that, oh, this guy's an extremist and this guy did this, this, and this. And I'm like, I hope my digital footprint ain't that big to where you know what the fuck I'm doing.
But that's a combination of gaslight and propaganda.
Yes. No, 100. And that's also why I'm bringing up how this new law that you were talking about reads when it says public knowledge. When it talks about public knowledge, think about it. It's literally talking about social media. What they're saying is if you post shit on social media, we don't need a warrant. Because that's what the first thing comes to mind when you talk about public domain. It used to be like a phone book when we were kids, you know what I'm saying? Now, public domain is anything that you decide that you willingly put out there on social media. They can scrub that and they can watch that without even having to get a warrant to come into your house or look at your devices because you've already volunteered that. And we already know how Google with Google and Yahoo and all these other were so favorable with the NSA just giving your information away. So that's a problem.
So let's talk about Titan Point. In 1987, AT&T built a 20-story building at 33 Thomas Street in New York City in Manhattan. It is a NSA listening station that is built to withstand a nuclear blast. It was built to protect computers and telecom equipment. AT&T demonstrated an extreme willingness to spy on American citizens on behalf of the U.S. government. Phone calls, faxes, and all internet communications are being intercepted. Any type of communication that comes through the AT&T network can be accessed by the government. Now, that is something I want to pause at for right there. Because when they talk about back in 2014 and 15 and 16, when Apple was suing the United States government for breach of privacy, Apple phones were exclusively on AT&T networks for the longest time.
Hold it. That's deep. I forgot about that. When the iPhone first came out, it was exclusively on the AT&T network. That's deep. Go ahead.
Then you had this phone that's hard to crack or hack from the outside. So then what is this really then? Because if you can't hack the phone, you can't access the phone, then it's on the AT&T network. So, okay, this is what I'm hearing happening. The intelligence agencies found out this type of phone that Apple was making and that you couldn't hack it from the outside. So then, okay, if I can't get into the phone, I can at least record your telephone conversations.
Let me think about something for a second. Suppose they already had access to the phone, right? But because
to
they
the phone calls. To the phone calls.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hold it. Listen to what I'm saying. So they have Titan Point, which from the records I saw, Titan Point was older than that. They said it was completed in 74. So it probably didn't get up and running to the 80s. But just think about this. We already had access to your phone calls and your data and your information. We just didn't have a good reason for it. So now we're saying, hey, we need to be able to hack the phone. What they were doing was creating a backup story to why we already had this information. Think about it. If we already had access to it, we already knew about your text messages, we already knew all this shit. But how do we justify it? So then let's go to like, hey, we need to be able to get into the phones in case of emergency. They always love to throw that vague emergency thing out there. So in my mind, I think it was just the opposite. They had already put the cart in front of the horse. They had already had the information. Now we got to figure out how do we explain it away? How do we justify having this information? You dig what I'm saying? They already had it. They already had your phone calls. So, hey, what's a good cover story? Hey, but Apple sued them so they wouldn't have that. But that also lets you know Apple was unaware of what was going on with AT&T, which, by the way, their code name was Lithium. Whatever, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, that's what's so profound about that Titan Point. That literally that this company was volunteering your information. And they said that the NSA employees that were there just blended in. You couldn't tell them from the AT&T employees. And this has been going on. Now, here's the other problem. I read an article a few years back about how they had a lawsuit that started because they said AT&T has been listening since '83 to your phone calls and all that stuff. I can't find the old article. I can find some newer lawsuits from 08, 14 and stuff like that, but I can't find the one that says that it went that far back. So that means back in the day when we all had AT&T for long distance, you had it, I had it, they were listening to your phone calls back then. When you called your great aunt or when
you try to reach out and touch someone.
Yep, come on.
And so then, which is super creepy because then you had in 92, 93, 94, you had these commercials that said, you will. And you will do this. And it was all suggestive programming. Meanwhile, these motherfuckers are recording. Well, they tell us what the future is because they're recording all of our conversations. You will be able to. You will do this and you will not have any rights. And I'm like, oh, right. Because that's your company motto is submit. So you want everybody to submit just like your company motto is.
So when Sprint and MCI came out, that was probably a problem for them. You dig? Because so the way Sprint and MCI worked, you have Al Schultz, he made his money through the railroad. And what he did was MCI was coming into being and they were like, look, we want to run our fiber optic lines. We want to use your real estate. We want to run our fiber optic lines next to your railroad tracks. He said, okay, cool. But for every 3 lines you do, you give me 2. So by him doing that, that's how he created Sprint. So MCI built Sprint's infrastructure for them for free. And so that's how that started. So I'm sure that's a big part of why AT&T, I don't know, lost popularity or whatever. But the thing was, they didn't have any direct competition until MCI and Sprint came into the picture. Before that, I'm sure the NSA, they had carte blanche. They had all the information they needed.
So the Fourth Amendment protects American citizens against illegal search and seizure without a judge signing a warrant. To sidestep that, intelligence agencies began listening to phone conversations and would then use that information to entrap people. COINTELPRO was the perfect example of that. FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Spying Act, was created to control the extent to which these agencies could collect your data only with a warrant signed by a judge. Project Skid Row allowed intelligence agencies to comb through the data collected. AT&T also has another 59 locations around the U.S. that are used to collect your data and is willfully, extremely willing to share it with intelligence agencies. So
the problem with Skid Row is that basically they type in a keyword, and anybody who said that word, whether it's a text message, email, whatever, oh, we have 150,000 of these incidents. Let's just look at these people. You haven't committed a crime. Why are you watching me?
So we're calling this episode Mission Creep because that is a term that you hear in the military community where they slowly build up resources ahead of a operation. They get the supplies, they get personnel, they get all the logistical knowledge and everything in ready and in place before they move on a target. This is the exact same playbook. But let's talk about the move bombing. Police dropped a bomb on a West Philadelphia house on May 13th. May 13th, 1985, the 13th. The fire was caused by an explosion, actually a bomb that killed 11 people. An atrocity that Philadelphia still grapples with today. MOVE was a controversial Philadelphia-based organization often associated with the Black Power movement, combined with the philosophies of Black nationalism and anarcho-primitivism.
Like Black Guerrillas or something like that? Or I forgot what they call it. Black Guerrilla Family?
To advocate a return to a hunter-gatherer society and avoidance of modern medicine and technology. The group's loud and public quest for racial justice, as well as its strong views on animal rights, led to a number of confrontations between MOVE members and their West Philadelphia neighbors, as well as with Philadelphia police. Mayor Wilson Goode and his top advisors at the time, including then District Attorney Ed Rendell, who's now the governor, approved the decision to drop the explosives. They were attempting to get rid of MOVE, a radical liberation group living in a commune. The MOVE organization is a family of strong, seriously, deeply committed revolutionaries founded by the strategically minded black man named John Africa, also known as Vincent Leapart. The principle of their belief is explained in a collection of writings they call the Guidelines, authored by John Africa, which called for a vigorous rejection of the norms and conventions of modern technological society. This disruptive lifestyle of MOVE members led to conflict with neighbors and the police. City officials characterized the group as terrorists. Neighbors complained for years of cult-like tendencies, and members of MOVE constantly screaming diatribes out of loudspeakers, and they expressed their concerns about child abuse and neglect in MOVE's house. Yeah.
My issue with that is it seems like, don't get me wrong, a lot of these cats, whenever they create these organizations, these cults, whatever you want to call them, they end up doing something to the kids, messing with the girls, whatever. But it also seems like that's the government's keyword to come in and see what's going on. And I think it's ironic that with all this child trafficking we got going on with these government officials, that you don't see them having the same vigor when it comes to when you hear a claim that, hey, Hillary Clinton did blah, 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 they should be investigating that. But whenever they find these militant organizations, the first thing, man, they were touching the girls. They were touching the kids. We had to go in.
But here's the thing about black identity in America. You can do your hair a certain way. You can talk a certain way. You can spend your money a certain way. But if you get groups of people to do the exact same thing, then you start to draw attention to yourself. Now, if that attention is attractive to intelligence agencies, which they were probably trying to infiltrate this group, or did, and you're also attempting to, make changes in government, then they're going to do that. So one strange coincidence or similarity that I found in all these MOVE members, every single one of them had dreadlocks. All right, so you don't want people doing their hair any other way? That's controlling. So that is like a cult in some ways.
Yeah, 100.
But MOVE, for all these years, has contended it is simply an organization that hopes to revolutionize the world to rid itself of the system, a blanket term that covers police brutality, technology, and anything man-made or impure. They call MOVE their religion, and they feel they have been persecuted for the wrong reasons.
One of the things that I heard when I was younger, I guess it didn't register with me. The FBI was created for what reason?
They were used to intimidate people.
No, hear me out. Who was the FBI created for? Jack Johnson. When he was transporting the white women over state lines, the FBI was created to find something on him. That is how the FBI started. I had heard that when we were kids. Miss Harris, my neighbor across the street, had told me that. Because she's 100 years old, 80-something years old. It didn't
She
make
lived through it.
Yes. Now that I'm an adult, I understand what she meant. So Judge Joe Brown broke it down. He said the same thing they used to prosecute Jack Johnson was the Mann Act. That's what they're using for R. Kelly and for Puff Daddy. He said, I'm not saying they're not guilty of it or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But he said that's so when he married the white woman. He was taking white women over state lines. They had to find something that he did that was immoral or wrong, and that's how the FBI began. And he said they brought U.S. Marshals with it because back then the FBI didn't even have guns. That's how it started. Was trying to find something on this one black man that was so flamboyant, and he just put his thumb in your face, and so y'all couldn't take that. This goes back to what you said about lawfare. This is when they try to use laws in a, what's the word I'm looking for, in a not just oppressive way, but racist or sexist way. Like, okay, I don't like you, so I'm going to find a law that you're breaking. Whether you're breaking the law or not, doesn't matter. I'll keep throwing something to the wall till it sticks. That's how the FBI began.
So
and I'm like,
let me go back over lawfare for people who are unaware of what that means. Lawfare is the use of legal action and law enforcement to intimidate, damage, or delegitimize an opponent. It is also used to deter an individual's usage of their individual rights. Politically conservative people think it began with Donald Trump in January 6th, but black people in America saw the use of lawfare beginning with the Bacon Rebellion, and Jack Johnson was just another example of that.
And so, like I said, if they have the access to your information without proper channels, without proper oversight, everybody in America is a criminal. Everybody in America is a potential terrorist based on a conversation you had. Like, you have two women talking about something, and all of a sudden they say, oh, I don't like the Muslims, Allah Akbar. But it could be turned into, oh, they were plotting. This is the problem. When you have people that are so quick to throw away the Constitution, when you have people that are, I just think it's odd that every time we look up, it's the Democrats who are saying, let's do away with the Electoral College. Let's do that we need, it's not responsible for you to say anything on the internet. We need oversight in this. And I'm like, but we want oversight of the government. We want you to be honest with us about what you're doing. But the first thing out their mouth is, oh no, it's irresponsible for somebody to have that much power. What? It's called freedom of speech. It's the very First Amendment. It's the very first thing we got, because that's how we can hold you accountable. That's how we can bring up things that we think that you need to address. But I can't even talk about you? That's some fascist shit coming up, y'all.
100%.
And I get it.
So, like, then between 2001 and 2005, the United States ran a global network to transfer terrorism suspects to a secret detention sites across the world.
Yep.
This is called rendition. And there's two types of rendition. Extraordinary rendition. This involved the transfer of a person from one country to another without legal process. The second is military rendition. This involved the transfer of a person from one military facility to another, often for the purpose of detention or interrogation. And now we have a third, where they can render or perform rendition on American citizens, because it was the NDAA that in 2014 into 15, the Obama administration allowed it to be updated so that American citizens can be seen as terroristic threats.
Hey, so nobody talks about, remember, wasn't there some 16-year-old or 23-year-old kid that had some kind of Muslim extremist that was killed by the, I don't know which organization, I thought it was CIA, under a Barack, and I'm like, that don't bother nobody? It was really swept under the rug. And one of the things I'm like, it makes you think that they do have a way to look into the future. Maybe they saw this guy as a threat in the future, and they're like, look, let's take his ass out now. Because it was so obscure and so quiet.
So Hillary Clinton used one of these devices called Operation Looking Glass. Mm-hmm. And apparently this is some type of Sumerian Anunnaki technology that they found when they went to Iraq. And they allowed her, because she was the Secretary of State in the Obama administration, to look through this device and see the future or see a possible future. So perhaps they looked into this future and they saw shit not going their way, and they're like, yo, we got to do as much as we can to course correct because it's about to get bad for us. Meaning
Look,
deep state bad.
there are so many different things about her emails and different requests. Or
Hella
look,
shady.
all you gotta do is Google Nephilim DNA, and when you read that article,
The
that pops up,
resurrection chamber that they found in Iraq, and they wanted to get their greedy little
hands on it.
drone stained hands on it.
Oh my God, hold it. Like I said, there are so many different things that are attached to this situation, where you have the government with no oversight listening to our phone calls, trying to keep you in line. So many of
And
these
then
things
gaslighting you into thinking that you're doing something wrong when you haven't been doing anything wrong the entire time. And they're trying to gaslight you into thinking that you don't have the right to do these things.
guilt trip you is what you feel guilty because, oh my God, the government looked into me. I must be doing something wrong.
Check it out. It was WikiLeaks that exposed the emails of Hillary Clinton.
Snowden. Oh yeah. I forgot
and
about that.
So they were requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of a buried Nephilim. Yeah.
Hold it. But what was the response when they asked? The response was, how they worded it? It is not declassified yet, or it was still top secret. The response was not, this shit is bullshit, doesn't exist. The response was something to the effect that is still on a need to know basis kind of thing.
But see, listen, when you were watching the first digitized live stream of the Iraq invasion, of a live stream military invasion into Iraq, that was all over these American TV screens, what you were actually watching was not a military invasion, but the Second Holy War. And these were the Knights Templars army. Now, not searching for the articles of the crucifixion, the artifacts of the crucifixion, they were looking for the artifacts of Gilgamesh's death.
Okay, you want to get deep now. So you an asshole sometimes. Like you go there. Look.
That's the point of the show, motherfucker.
That's not what I meant. What I was referring to is like when it came to Saddam and the whole Kuwait situation. Kuwait actually was doing that nigga wrong. They actually, I forgot what they did to Saddam's country or whatever for him to invade Kuwait, but there was actually legitimate reason for it. They had wronged them, and the UN was aware of it. So all of a sudden, when he started to invade, he asked our permission, all this other stuff, and then we decided to go over there because, like you said, this whole Holy War thing and all this Stargate stuff and all this other stuff that's over there, this was our excuse to go over there. Because how many of these locals told you, like, hey, when they invaded, they was working all night long. You know, the Americans were loading up trucks all night long. So that tells you that, hey, all these things are a cover story. Too many times they give us a cover story, and because we're patriots, because we're good citizens, we eat the cover story up. But it's the same thing when it came to World War II and Pearl Harbor. We knew about Pearl Harbor. We could have avoided it, but we needed an excuse to go into the war. We needed a cover story. So when these declassified files come out and you notice all this different stuff, like, oh damn.
But see, here's the thing about the Japanese in World War II. That was about self-sacrifice. These bonsai pilots. So these people that are doing this, you have to look at what their motivation is. When you want to see a politician, look at
what is motivation.
Money. Where is the money coming from? The money is the motivation. And then the person providing the money, what is their motivation? 9 times out of 10, they belong to a death cult. But those people are cowards. They don't make martyrs. They're the furthest thing from those Japanese bonsai pilots of World War II.
No, completely.
But they have to be reinforced by Hollywood. They need the magic of spells,
the machine behind them,
to brainwash everybody, to brainwash the major media networks and use big tech and these death cults. They basically control and push this agenda, but everybody gets caught up in middle management. Oh, it's the Jews. Oh, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, you totally missing the point here when you blame just the Jews for what's going on here.
I think that there is some blame there. It's probably again much higher up than just the guy in the middle. But the fact of the matter is that it takes two people to lie. You know, if you want to believe somebody, it's a lot easier for them to lie to you. If you're already racist and don't like the brown skinned person, then the government can just lay that out there for you. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's easier for somebody to believe a lie if they want to believe it. You know, Richard Pryor, those yellow bastards. And we laugh now, but that's the whole thing is that, hell, we need to be in this war for some other reason. So how many of these wars are about shit that we don't know? All of them. They all have ulterior motives. They all have something else going on behind the scenes. There's always some gold being stolen. There's always some artifacts being found. There's always a fucking Cambodia in the jungle they found, so there's always something else going on. And then whenever we find these sites, they're already been raided and looted. And they tell you the same thing with these Egyptian tombs. Oh, they were raided and looted years ago. Are you sure? We don't know, but I just know there's always another agenda. And the fact, the reason to go, I remember we had this conversation about 2 years ago. I had went to get an oil change, and this guy was breaking down. He said, "Hey," he was telling me that the government is the reason that Google's doing so well. The government is the reason that Facebook is doing so well. And so then that's what I realized. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, look at the number one stock, who owns the most stock in Facebook and who owns the most stock in Google." And that's when it hit me. That's how they got access to all our shit. It's not just this the Blarney or whatever they want to call this thing where they're working with the NSA. If the government owns a big chunk of you, they don't need a warrant. They don't need permission. And AT&T was just volunteering. So now they have access to all of our information, not just when we make phone calls, but what the phone calls are about. Me and you, sometimes we joke, but how many times have me and you had a deep conversation and the phone just hangs up in the middle of the conversation and we got to call back and we laugh.
And both phones are fully charged and both phones have just perfectly fine reception.
My other brother, Day, when he passed, same thing. We would talk for hours and the phone would just stop. And I'm like, oh, damn. I call back or you call me back or Day would call me back and like, oh, well, I guess we said something we weren't supposed to say. And we laugh about it. But we weren't joking. We were legitimately. This goes back to intimidation. This is them intimidating us like, hey, niggas, y'all getting too close to whatever we don't want you to get close to. You're flying too close to the sun. Mr. Roscoe, and so these are the situations that we've been dealing with for the past 20 years, you think? 25 years?
So these people that are pushing this form of control, they're a form of religious fanatics. But religions happen when people don't get the point of the message, and they blindly worship the message and the messenger, instead of grasping the mindset or awareness within the words that the message conveys. Simple-minded people. And I don't mean that in a complimentary way.
Well, actually, what it is that it's derogatory, and people pick and choose the parts of the Bible they like. People pick and choose the parts of government they like, and so this is what you end up with is extremists, and they think they're justified because of this. How many of these? Look.
I sent you a book. I sent you a book. It was called Dragon Legacy. And this book is really interesting because it talks about something that stretches back all the way to the third age of man. And for people to try and wrap their mind around what this is something that goes back to 24,000 years ago. That's and in the books that were written by J.R. Tolkien, that's where Lord of the Rings would have been situated around 22,000 years ago, before Atlantis. Okay.
Have you ever talked to a Mason about that, and they tell you that hey, Lord of the Rings is real? And I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, Lord of the Rings, all that shit is real. And whenever you talk to these old Masons, they throw that shit out there, and then they'll tell you a story about something. I'll give you another one. Demon Knight. I'm watching Demon Knight with one of my boys. He's a Prince Hall Mason, and there's a scene in there where they show the crucifixion, and he freaks out. He's like, "That really happened? You know that really happened?" Where I guess that dude with the thief and the blood of a, he's and he just wigs out on me, and he's like a
So,
6th-degree Mason.
so Aleister Crowley belonged to a mystery school called the Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yes.
He didn't start it; he was part of it. And when he started to branch out and become like this public figure, he was sharing all this information with the public. And so Masons would tell him that they had to change all of their ceremonies because he kept giving all the stuff away for free to these
Oh, no
people
shit.
that he was teaching the stuff to. Yeah.
No, that I didn't
They
hear.
changed their
He-
ceremonies a bunch of times because he was giving the shit away.
That's deep.
Now,
Uh,
this book though, The Dragon Legacy, talks about this third age of man and who the Anunnaki were and who were the descendants of the Anunnaki
Yeah.
and how these people became the Scythians. And the Scythians would then basically start Scandinavia and those areas. And they produced a cousin lineage called the Swedes and then the Rotsi clan that founded Russia. So, and all this would, spread out over time and, slowly cultivate these areas. The Scythians had a caste system, consisted of 3 closely internet cooperating races. And it was very similar to what you saw with the Hindus. So, like, when you hear in Hinduism about how, Brahma would take somebody, up to the astral plane and then bring them back in 10,000 years had passed. It's because time doesn't exist in the same way in higher dimensions. But okay, people wonder what the fuck does this have to do with mission creep? Motivation. Motivation. It's about what is motivating these people that are wanting to take away these rights because they want to bring back what they call the old gods, the things that moved along this the surface 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 years ago, 2 ages ago of man. So you're dealing with people who have a different belief system than you. That, we're up here talking about, Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha. They own some way different shit, man. And it is way darker. It's way darker than what you're being told.
Hey, you ever talk to a smart person and they try to justify or explain shit away, or they try
Yes,
to
I had a conversation like that yesterday.
look? You ever deal with? They'll try to discredit the Bible. I remember this one chick was trying to discredit the Bible because
dude.
it doesn't have it doesn't have dinosaurs in it. Where the dinosaurs? I'm like, but you do realize the word dinosaur came out in 1890. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago. But guess what the Bible does say? Dragons alive. So you don't suppose the word dragon is what they use for describe a big lizard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you try to talk to her, so now I guess I'm not getting the pussy now. She gets. I'm like, I'm not trying to sleep with you. I'm just trying to explain to you that based on your logic, that you're not you're not really thinking it all the way through. I'm not saying that the Bible is completely 100 whatever, but I'm telling you that yes, the Bible doesn't talk about dinosaurs because it was written before the word dinosaur existed. Does that make sense to you? And then I'm an asshole. You dig? Like when I poke holes in somebody's story, then I'm like, look, I'm just pointing out something to you. So I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to tell you that what you're saying, based on intelligence, ain't it, cuz?
Right. So these are about agendas. This is all about agendas. Like, people can use the word conspiracy all they want, but I've always been more partial to the word agenda. Because it's like, this is a plan. Like, you can rotate the players in this plan all you want in and out of it, but this is the plan and it's going to keep rolling. The way people have, 10-year plans, 20-year plans, 100-year plans, like 1,000-year plans, and for those who are aware of Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, it has a new name now. It has a different name, and they'll keep changing the names They won't call. They don't even speak about Agenda 21 anymore. And Agenda 2030, they're barely speaking about that now because now they're speaking about the next one. You know, they're talking about the next thing and they're trying to change all the words. That's tricknology right there. When you have to keep changing the names, beware of that shit when you see it. When you see somebody keep changing the names, like, for example, I'm a little irritated with all these different names for black people because, you know, this POC, BIPOC, and I'm like,
what the
fuck all that dumb shit, man. Like,
what's POC?
Like,
person
a
of color?
black person ain't even coming up with these fucking names. Like, what Negro meetings are you having where you are talking? Like, it's probably 3 people in the room where you coming up with this shit. You just making shit up. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen. I was talking with a brother yesterday, a black dude from Australia, and his mother was from Zimbabwe, and his father is Australian. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
white or Aboriginal? I'm just not being nosy, just asking.
Oh, white. But
I'm sorry.
So, you know, and like his first time in Atlanta, you know, and I was joking. I was like, oh, you got somebody that can go. You finally got a place you can come to and get your nappy ass hair done the right way. And he just started laughing and shit. I'm like, I'm dead ass serious, man. So I gave him like this list of like things to do. Because like it was his second time in the U.S. The first time he went to New York. And I'm like, all right, you in Atlanta, you in the South, bro. Like, I'm going to give you like the proper introduction. I said, first of all, welcome. You know what I'm saying? Second of all, go to these places. You know, he wanted to see some black comedy. I was like, go here. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to get some good food. I'm like, go here. You know, he wanted to see some real culture. I'm like, go here. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me make sure you have a good experience. Like, it's once you tell me that, then it's my responsibility to make sure you at least visit one legit place. So,
yeah, I'm your tour guide.
Man, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got to make sure you have a good experience in my city, my guy, because I don't want you to be like, man, yeah, I went to America. It was total, you know, it was bollocks, you know, whatever the fuck they say and shit. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't see Biggie one time. Where's Biggie? Like,
yeah, been dead for 20, 30 years, man. But
yeah.
but you know, he wanted like he was like, because he had to go from Atlanta to DC. And he's like, oh, you know, I might try and catch a Wizard game. So I'm like, no. Go to a Hawks game. I'm like, we ain't the best, but we're playing OKC this Saturday. Like, go to that game, and you go see some real culture.
Time. Yeah, you have a legitimate good time.
Yes, man. You know what I mean? So I'm like, and then like also coming from like where he is, where it's not a lot of black people, I'm like, bro, go here, go see this. You know what I'm saying? So you go just understand some shit for a minute. You know what I mean? So you can feel what it's like to be around in a black city around a bunch of black people. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
The good and the bad. I want you to
all of it. I mean, and the place I sent him to, he would see that and experience that. But also, you know, going to a black comedy club, like that would be an education for him as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a different vibe.
100%.
Look, the reason we're talking about this is when you sit here and Roscoe sent me the document and I'm reading over it, and there's so many different things in there about, like I said, they're talking about social media without talking about social media. And we've been telling you guys for the past 3 years, stop telling on yourselves. Now, of course, the thing that these people say is, I ain't got nothing to hide. I'm not doing nothing illegal.
Stop that. I hate people who think like that.
Yes, stop justifying your abuse. You look. So, you already know. I just 2 or 3 days ago, I went. A friend of mine, a friend of somebody we grew up with, dad had a stroke, so I went to the hospital. His mom was explaining the situation, and I'm like, you got to understand that black folks are so used to dealing with negative situations that sometimes we rationalize it, and we just want to get. I just want to go to bed and get the next day. And she's like, yeah, if I fell asleep, he would have. And she did everything right, but she still felt some kind of way because she said, I thought about going to bed, kind of thing. And that's what I'm talking about, that we can rationalize, as black people dealing with negative situations so many times, we rationalize them. We blame ourselves for the racism. We blame ourselves for shutting the plant down and now none of us have jobs. Or we wrap our mind. So don't try to rationalize this by saying, I'm not doing anything illegal. They are. You are literally the victim of this situation, and you are fucking jerking off your oppressor. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're literally like, well, I'm not doing nothing illegal. The government is, because your Fourth Amendment right states that they can't do search and seizure without a warrant. The Fifth Amendment is you have a right to non self-incrimination. So those two things all right there means that the government, by listening to your conversations, and you're not a suspect in a crime. You understand? You're not. You're an American on American soil. Now, if you're American overseas, then even then they have a higher retention on your information if they think that you're into something. But the bottom line, you ain't been charged, bro. And we all know this. When the government decides to build a case against you, you probably did it. But if you just minding your own business, talking to your brother, talking to your homeboy, talking to your sister, talking to your mom and your dad, and you say some shit like, man, these white folks get on my nerve. Now you just become an extremist, and they're going to use that as an excuse.
But think about this, though. The Soviet Union, East Germany, Cuba, and Venezuela were all attempts to bring about the perfect slave society. So
Venezuela most recently, though. So this is some real shit. We ain't talking about like the 50s. We're talking about Venezuela right now with all that socialism. What country has the most oil deposits in the world? Is Venezuela. It ain't some Saudi Arabia shit. So that means that they have enough money, enough assets to take care of their own people and not treat them like shit, not starve these motherfuckers. But no, because of greed, because of Western colonization and all this other bullshit we talk about.
But I brought that up because if you keep saying yes to everything the government says, with all these swamp creatures and all these people that are in the government that want to drive it towards fascism, that is what it will become. Those 4 different countries that I just named were all attempts to bring about the perfect slave society. So, it's like, how much of a slave do you want to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so crazy. Like, how you riding for your enemy so hard, it's ridiculous. I'm like, dude, you have people who want to put on masks again, and they will do this at the drop of a hat. And you basically want to take away your identity.
Well, it's 2 things there. They politicize the situation so much that I don't like Trump. I'm going to wear a mask. The Republicans let so many people die. I'm like, how they let?
Okay, but die? Here's the thing, though. You can't get caught up in idea politics, like identity politics, because I was talking with a friend yesterday, and he told me how he doesn't associate with a certain person anymore for certain reasons. But one of the things that kind of like changed their relationship is this person has Trump in their profile on their social media. I'm like, dude, you can't do that, man. Like, you cannot put a political figure in your profile for your social media, because that's not your identity. Like, who are you? Who are you?
Hey, Facebook. So I posted something with Charlie Brown, but it's clearly a meme. It's Charlie Brown. He's looking out the window, and the meme says, "Hey, I wish my mom could knock me into next week because I don't have enough money for this week." And this shit goes, "Hey, I don't support the Peanuts anymore because they support number 45." And I'm like, clearly this is not from Schultz. This is, you understand what I'm saying? This is not real Charlie Brown statement. Second, I'm like, I don't have a problem with them supporting Trump. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, shit, that's on you. But you honestly are going to stop.
But you are willing to like make these judgment calls on people based off of these things. That's all it takes for you to be judge, jury, and executioner. You Judge Dredd now based off of some person's like political affiliation. That's all. Like, you're that shallow that you can't think beyond that and look for nuances in a person's personality.
Look, I don't like to make generalizations, but all these single black women are on the Kamala bandwagon. Okay, I dig it. But you got a lot of dudes on there.
Not all of them.
I said a lot of them. That's why I said I be careful with generalizations. But enough of them to where the dudes they're sleeping with or the dudes that like them are saying shit to me like, "Hey, man, this, and this." And I'm like,
because the funny part about it is the guys they with don't support her.
No. The funny part is a lot of the guys they with that woman is in charge of the relationship. So, which look, I have no problem with the woman being in charge of the relationship.
No, I do.
But
Yeah,
it's not.
fuck all
Hold
that,
it.
dog. Fuck that.
Listen to what no, listen. It's not for me. That's not my life. Do you understand? That's not my lifestyle.
No. That is, that's just that is basically a nut running a nut house. That's all that shit is, and nobody wants to say it. Oh, you have a relationship, a organization basically that's run on feelings. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you gave a chainsaw to a mental patient. Fuck it, nigga. Just
No.
Everything you work hard for is gonna be fucked up.
Shit ain't happening.
Look, but hold it. And that's why, the same way you said, that's a general. Not all women. Some women are great and they can run a relationship. You know, it's whatever. That's how. But a lot of these. No. Hold it. But no. But a lot of these, like you said, a lot of these situations where these women are super emotional and you letting her run shit, when it goes to the ground, and all of a sudden you get upset. You're like, man, where did I go wrong? You didn't take the reins, nigga, when you was supposed to. You was worried more about having a fight and being henpecked than doing what's fucking right for this situation. Look, that's what we're going through right now. The bottom line is this. I ain't got a problem with Charlie Brown. Nigga, I grew up on Charlie Brown. That nigga was a shit back then. I used to love watching CBS and that special thing go around on the screen, and you're like, oh, I'm going to watch cartoons at 8 o'clock at night. So stop trying to ruin my childhood on some political bullshit. Fuck y'all, stupid motherfuckers.
This is what I have to say. These DOD directives, the 5240.01 and the National Defense Authorization Act, and all of these laws that are all working together. See, the thing about the DOD directive is that it on its own, it can't work because it works with local law enforcement. And if local law enforcement is willing to submit to intelligence agencies and give this information up, then it's a problem. When a sheriff's department, this is the thing, when a sheriff's department who can actually fight back against the government, y'all don't understand this, you need to know this.
A sheriff is an elected official is what he's saying.
A sheriff is a locally elected official that can form a posse that can fight against government tyranny. Basically, invaders to that county. They can fight back against invaders to that county if they see them as a threat. And they have the right to defend themselves. You need to know this. Any sheriff's department can do that, so long as they have the backing of the people to hold it the fuck down.
Here's the thing. We need you, some of the things that we brought up in this podcast, we need you to look up. Not because, we're trying to justify us. We need you to know how they affect you in a day-to-day and why this is so important that people don't have access to your information and your phone calls and the things that you do.
And stop letting these people make you think that Edward Snowden was a bad guy.
Oh, I was going there. First, King Alfred plan. See that shit is real. Rex 84. See that shit is real. See, look up Titan Point. Look up the building in New York. Was it 33? I forgot the name of the street. Please forgive me. Look up lithium. Look up AT&T. Look up AT&T's relationship with the NSA. Look up all these lawsuits. One of these lawsuits was the judge asked the NSA to give me either proof that you did it or proof that you didn't do it, and the NSA asked for a fucking appeal for 15 years. So this shit's been going on for over 20 years.
And they lied in Senate hearings and to the Congress. They lied. They lied. They lied. They will lie. They lied under oath.
So we need you. We just want you to see this shit so you can put two and two together, because you can't make an accurate decision without accurate information. You only can make a bad decision if you don't have all the facts, or you make an emotional decision and say, because this lady's black, she's best for us. I don't like either candidate. I might not even vote in the presidential part and vote this, everything else. But I haven't decided yet. That's how torn I am.
Look, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.